Mortal Shell, the Virtuous cycle is what the game desperately needed. Now we have a lot more content to enjoy this magnificent game. However, the new addition to the game is that of a roguelike. You have to defeat all of the 4 bosses in the game to complete the Virtuous cycle. Mortal Shell in itself, it's already a really hot game. What is up, you damn beautiful and gorgeous gamers, and welcome back to RPJames. Before we continue with today's video subject, why don't you take some time to subscribe and like the video as well? I dedicate my life to help the tar junkies in Falgrim. You would be contributing to that by subscribing. With that out of the way, let's get into the matter. As I mentioned, Mortal Shell is already a really hot game. The Virtuous cycle expects of you to be finishing the game in a really short time, really short runs, complete the main 4 boss fights without dying. I will help you to turn that arduous path into a walk in the park with this build. First and foremost, the instinct or perk that you're going to want to have. I have only encountered it to be on the epic section of the perks, so be sure to invest on the epic tab as much as you can when you're at base. The perk I am speaking about, the instinct I am speaking about, is super hard. Yeah, not that kind of hard, mister. This is everything you need to complete the Virtuous cycle. Everything you need to complete it. Anything else, it's just an addition, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. It is of course a Harrow's instinct, so you want to have Harrow's as your shell. What this does is that each time your Harden ability finishes cooldown, there is a 30% chance that the next Harden is a Super Harden, which makes you immortal for a short period of time. To have in mind that instinct's acquisitions is randomized, and sometimes you're going to struggle to get this. If you haven't acquired it yet by the time your second hardened instinct shows at the altar, restart the run. I have been playing quite a while though, and I have yet to restart a run just one time due to Super Harden not popping up. We'll talk about the strategy later. Close call is also a useful instinct. Sometimes you mess up, we're not perfect, take a hit, we're not perfect. This ensures that at least half of those hits go to stamina bar instead of health, survivability. Next things that you are going to need are mostly damage increases, like the Molten Spike damage increase for example. Essentially any instinct that raises your weapon skill damage. It doesn't really matter what kind of weapon are you using, as long as you're prioritizing weapon skill damage, just your overall DPS increases. You can use whatever weapon you want for this kind of build. Boss weakness. Some of the bosses are really beefy, especially the last boss fight. It doesn't really matter when they can't hurt you thanks to the build, but sooner you butcher them, the better. Momentum attack is your breath and butter for the cheekiest cheesiness you can ever find. Hardened jump attack is as cheesy as you can get, and if you increase its damage substantially, it's only a win-win scenario. As for the mortal instincts, you want to increase the damage as much as possible. Every time you see a damage increase, take it. Also be sure to invest in world item and enemy drops mortal instincts at base. They really help quite a lot. Movement speed is also quite important. When you're in super hardened state, you're really slow, thus hindering your overall DPS capability. If the enemies or bosses are moving around too much, and there are few of them that actually do so, they are going to, like I mentioned before, hinder your DPS capability. That's pretty much it. Let's take a look at how this thing works. Like I said, you want to be in hardened state every time you get into a fight. So even when you're not in combat, spend all of your hardens until you get the super harden icon above your health bar. That indicates that the next harden, it's a super harden, and that means that you're invisible for a couple of seconds. Not just a couple of seconds, but enough to perform like 4 or 5 complete combos before the super harden state ends. 1 out of 3 hardens is going to be a super harden, which means that if you keep hopping normal hardens until super harden is ready, he will never be harmed. Essentially, if you want to call it, cheating, being completely invincible at all times. In boss fights, you want to be running around as much as possible and using your hardened state as much as possible until super hardened state pops out. That's going to guarantee you a couple of combos on the boss. It's going to take like 1/4 of the life bar depending on the damage increases and instincts and perks you have been getting. Sometimes you will dish out 1/3 of the health bar of the boss if you use this kind of strategy before the super hardened state ends. So yeah, you're pretty much breaking the game with this thing. Do bear in mind that playing this build is quite effortless and takes away the challenge Mortal Shell imposes on you, so do be aware of that. Nevertheless, it's a fun build to familiarize yourself with all of the areas of the game for future runs where you decide not to abuse of the game. That being said, I hope that you guys find this guide useful and stay tuned to the channel since we will be talking a little bit more about Mortal Shell thanks to this new content addition. That being said, like the video, really helps quite a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you beautiful, goddamn beautiful gamers in the next one. Remember that you're beautiful, beautiful persons, but most importantly, remember to stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you beautiful, beautiful gamers in the next one.